That's bad.
Alright, guess what we're finally doing? We got some stuff for the 55. Some of my goals for this were switch it to rack and pinion steering, get rid of the steering box and everything like that. It works fine, and this is a manual box, but I just don't want it on there. It's heavy, it's in the way. I just don't want it. I want rack and pinion. Also, need to get new suspension on the front of it. So new springs, new shocks. I would like tubular control arms. Not necessary, but I would like it. And then I want to convert it to disc brakes, because this is some old school ass drums, which work well, but I'd like a little bit more clamping force, you know? Drums have worked and still work really well for the past 700 years, since Father Ford invented the automobile for the very first time. No one else did it first. But, you know, we're trying to be a little spunky with this hot rod, so I would like some discs. So I was all set to just start swiping away at the old credit card, catching that thing on fire, getting some carpet burn on it, and order all the parts. And literally that same day, I had a buddy, just no messages at all, just send me some pictures of this frame. And I was like, all right, is he showing off, or does he want to sell it, or what's going on? And a little bit later, he sent me a message, $500, thought you might be interested in it. And it is this. Now at first I was like, I don't know about that, but after doing a little bit of research on this, this is a Chris Alston chassis work front half kit. Brand new. It looks like crap because I've left it out in the rain for probably a week now. But this, brand new, with the shocks and everything, was about $3,500. Now it is a Mustang 2 style, which isn't the greatest to me. Like, it works really well, and it'll work arguably better than this. Like, this can be made to work, but like I said, I got this for $500. It's already set up for rack and pinion, has the mounts and everything, tubular control arms, coilovers, disc brakes, a whole lot lighter. Just the cheapest rack and pinion kit that I could find from Unisteer was $1,000. So you kind of see where I'm going at with this thing. Now, I have been debating on this for probably a week now, trying to figure out if I wanted to do it or not. And I think ultimately I kind of do. It solves a lot of the issues with the stock setup. It'll save a lot of weight, get us to tubular control arms, get us to a better coilover front suspension for a hell of a lot cheaper, and converts us to rack and pinion. When I had everything priced out for this, it was, like I said, the rack and pinion kit was $1,000. Tubular control arms for the cheaper ones, that was like $600 or $700 for those. The disc brake kit, again, the cheaper one was about $700. But the aerospace kit that I was hoping to get was about $1,000 or $1,200. So just in those three kind of big ticket items alone, it was about $2,700 for all of that. Plus, I would still need the springs and shocks for it. So we'd be looking at like $3,500, give or take, to swap all this over and reuse the stock stuff. Like I said, don't need the tubular control arms. I think the stock ones would work fine for a pretty long time, but I would like to have had them. Now, coming over to this, actually, it's kind of a funny coincidence that this kit brand new was about $3,500, because that's what I just said all that stuff would have cost. Now, I do have to modify a couple things on this. One, it is about 4 inches too narrow for the track width, so I do have to widen that. And I think the drop of the frame rail is going to be too extreme. This one's probably like a 3.5-inch ride height one. The total change in height, I think, is about 10 inches for that. And for the stock frame, I think it's about 6 inches from right here to down there. So I was trying to think of how I wanted to do this and had a few different ideas. One of them was to try to cut it right here and graft all that on, but I don't think that'll really work quite right with the ride height and everything, because ultimately I think the only way I'm going to get any sort of real travel out of this Mustang 2 setup is to have it sitting with this lower control arm pretty close to level, which will put it about like this. So the frame rail here is going to be relatively low, not super low, but relatively low, a whole lot lower than the stock one. In fact, I could almost, well, it's going to be hard to tell until I find a way to get all the weight on this and get that down about to where I want it, so that I can take some measurements of where I want it to join in. Because what I would like to do is cut the stock frame kind of back in here, so that where it's joined together is hidden under the floor, and I can brace it really effectively and everything and gusset it. That's what I would like to do. I don't know if these rails in particular are going to work. What I've had a few people suggest is to take a section out of this to get that, and then I can weld those. I can butt weld those together and reinforce them on inside and outside. Which, I mean, we've seen stuff like that happen many times. So I am going to have a bar come off the cage going down to the front here to also help kind of triangulate things and reinforce them. So not really worried about any of that. So I think that front section where the A-arms and everything bolt to, I think that might almost have to go straight into the frame, maybe a little bit of a downslope. So that's kind of the part that I have to figure out, and I'm not really sure how I can take the measurements without having enough weight in the car to get it down where I want it. But first I need to get this thing cleaned up, get all the flash rust off of it, which it'll clean up pretty easily, and then get it in the garage so that it doesn't rust anymore. All right, it is probably like a month later from when we started this whole ordeal. I got the chassis, or the frame, the front clip, there we go, moved inside. I don't know if, like I said, it's been a month, so I don't remember what I've told you about this. This is a Chris Alston chassis work front clip, one of the Weldon ones, obviously. And I was going back and forth trying to figure out how to make it work. I have an idea how to make it work now. So what I was going to do, the rise and run of this, well, the run is fine. The rise of these frame rails, not very bueno. So I'd have to section that, bring the long rail up a little bit, just kind of get funky with it, in not a fun, funky way, in a way that makes you go, man, there's a lot of welded frame sections here. There'd be 1, 2 sections on each side. Which, as long as it's gusseted and fish plated and everything just fine, theoretically shouldn't have been an issue, especially with the front cage bars coming down, helping to reinforce things. But wasn't super thrilled about that. So moved it in here, started lining things up, got the ride height where I want it. That way, that should give me the most downward travel, like the most good downward travel. I could raise it up a little bit so that they're angled up slightly, but this matches where I have the car at right now, and I think the car could go a hair lower, like another inch or so lower, which will give me that upward angle. So right here, I've just got it matching the stock chassis. And lo and behold, what I figured out, one, I can cut off those frame horns and graft them onto this. Should be perfect. Not that I'll really need them, but I'll have them. Two, I can cut the frame right there and box and plate everything and fish plate it, and it'll be perfect. I should be able to do it in a way that's not super ugly and, you know, super noticeable that I hacked it right there, which is the main reason that I wanted to do it below the floor, so that it's, you know, a nice kind of uniform, everything looks how it should look vibe. We're all about the vibes around here. Anyway, I should be able to hack that about where those bolts are for the steering, and you know, plate it, do everything that we need to do. And then the track width on the stock car, nice, is 58.5 roughly. The track width for this right now, 54.5. So I'm gonna have to widen it. Not a huge deal. I thought about lengthening the control arms, longer control arms, more travel, nice. However, from the
inside to that frame rail to the inside of the other frame rail is 28, I believe, 28 and change. The outside to outside of these frame rails is 28. So these are 3x2 rails. If I move each one out 2 inches, it sits perfect on the stock rails, and widening each side 2 inches moves our track width from 54 to 58. Perfect. It's like it's meant to be. So that is the plan. I'm going to pull the motor out and fucking chop the front of this bitch off. All right, how's it going, guys? Been a minute since I posted. The weather has been, a nice way to put it is trash. Absolute garbage. Kind of has you on the brink of some... But today is actually a super nice day compared to how it's been the last couple weeks, which means that today is a sweltering -1 degrees, but slightly manageable. So, had some time to think about things while I was dreaming about being out here. And I came to a conclusion that I'm tired of waiting to work on the 55, so I'm going to say F everything else, which, I mean, the Skylark really doesn't need a whole lot. Like, this thing should move under its own power. Like, transmission's all bolted up, converter's bolted up, drive shaft is in, training lines are hooked up, shifter's hooked up. This thing should actually, if it wasn't a fucking skating rink out here, we would be able to pull that out of the way and move the 55 over to the hoist. However, not really in the cards right now. So we'll leave that here, and I think we're going to move the 55 over to the secondary bay and a little bit closer to the tools, a little bit closer to the action. Hopefully that gives me a little bit more motivation to work on this thing, because I have been staring at this thing for, I think, a year now. Just keep telling myself in the back of my head, once I get this done, I'll start working on it. Once I get that done, maybe I'll finish this and sell it to pay for some things. Well, you know, at this point, I'm just tired of waiting. I'm a very impatient person. I don't know how I've lasted this long with barely doing anything to it. So, here we go. Now, I did buy this Chris Alston's Chassis Works front clip for it off a buddy that I was going to cut and do this. It's a full Mustang 2 front suspension and everything. I got it pretty cheap, and I do have the coilovers for it. But I don't want this thing to turn into any longer of a project than it's going to be, so we're going to leave the stock chassis. I have been like overwhelming myself with all the little tiny detaily little things that I was like, man, if I'm going to build the car, I want to build it right, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, it's going to be one of those cars that sits on jack stands for 4 years, covered in dust. So to avoid that, we're just going to start fucking getting it together and just getting it running and driving. You know, we're still going to do Turbo LS, fucking sexy goodness, you know, 1,000 horsepower deal. But we're not going to worry about stuff like the floor pan or crazy suspension right now. We're just going to do the stuff that we need to do to get it moving. You know, like Freiberger always says, don't get it right, just get it running. So we're going to do some of that. And, god dang, these freaking birds, man. So I'm going to not worry about the floors. I do have a cage coming. I just ordered the cage last night, so I don't know when that'll be here. Hopefully within the week. So whenever that shows up, we'll start throwing that in here. It's just a pretty basic 10-point cage, just nothing crazy, just getting it together. And then, like I said, going to leave the front suspension alone, and I am going to ladder bar the rear end, just a quick and dirty jegs kit. I've got some buddies that said they have made a lot of power through those, and they're some of the best bang for the buck. So that's what we're going to do. Like I said, quick and dirty. I got a Ford 88 already narrowed right there that I've been holding on to for it. I was going to find a 6.0 for it and put like a BTR Stage 3 cam in it, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I've got pretty much everything. I just need some of the main bearings to put together this aluminum 5.3 with some 243 heads. I'll still put like a BTR Stage 3 in it. And I've got 2 new turbos that just one of those deals couldn't pass up. One is a VS88 and the other is a Force Performance 85. Probably put the 85 on this. I don't know. We'll see. We'll play around with different things. I got those super cheap. So like I said, first thing I'm going to do, move some stuff out of the way. We'll get this on the dollies, slide it over here into the exciting bay, one of the exciting bays, and start getting to work on it. I also need to figure out how I want to do the turbo kit, which I think I know how I want to do it, but I won't really know until things show up. I don't want to use this setup. All right, enough talking about it. Let's start doing some things. I'm going to turn the heater on. All right, got the car in place. Got a crew cab with a long bed in here. I've been having to park that thing in the middle bay past couple weeks and keep it plugged in and on a battery charger because it's been so low that the batteries just were not happy in the mornings going to start this thing. So like I said, the cage should be here. That just shipped out like an hour ago. I ordered it last night. Going to put together the aluminum 5.3 with the Gen 4 rods and flat tops, 243 heads. So I think that'll put it around 10 to 1 compression, which should be pretty good. Like I said, BTR stage 3 cam, dual valve springs. I like the duals just in case a spring breaks. It's not just going to drop the valve. There's still that inner one to help hold it up. I don't think I've ever personally seen both inner and outer springs break, but I'm sure it has happened. Then we'll whip up some sort of turbo kit. Probably just going to pick up another Kirky for this thing and just have the 2 front seats because we're just going to do traditional down bars. We're not going to do like the Pro Street bars to put a back seat in this thing. We'll give it a good scuff and squirt. No reason for it to stay in primer. Here's one of the spots that I got to fix is this back like sail panel. And then a little bit over here. A little bit on the rocker, a little bit on the door. The other side I think was fine, or at least good enough. Yeah, that side's all right. I'm gonna run the stock core support, so we can run a stock size radiator. Probably just a thicker core and a newer like aluminum one. We've got a couple intercoolers to choose from. That is a Huron Speed 4-inch core. And then we got this custom one that was built for a buddy's RX-7. Either one of those. Might go with that one just because it's a little bit more compact, but Who knows? We'll see when we get there. I've got a Turbo 400 that I need to build or have built or something like that. Get a drive shaft made, wire it up, which I've got a Holley HP right here that I got on trade from the same buddy I got the intercooler from. So yeah, there's just enough to keep, oh, plus doing the ladder bar, which that shouldn't take long at all. I mean, as far as the fabrication on doing a ladder bar, we'll get the rear end in place on the springs, and I mean, obviously I'll go over all this when the time comes to put it in, but we'll get the rear end in place on the leaf springs, and then use that to locate the rear end, and then basically we just have to weld in a crossbar for the front mounts, weld the brackets to the rear end itself, and then weld a support across the top for the shocks to help hold it in, and then obviously remove the leaf springs. So that should only take like a few hours, honestly. Oh, and a quick mini tub, which to do that, I think all I'm going to do is cut out these tubs and move them over a couple inches, and then just run some sheet metal over the gap. You know, nothing crazy, just enough to make sure that we've got enough room for our 28-10-5s. So that is the plan. Hopefully it's going to warm up next week. Golly, my ears are starting to hurt. And then, like I said, the cage will show up and we can actually get started on this thing. But while waiting for stuff to start showing up for the 55, I'll probably get back to work on the Skylark, try and get some of the last 10% of the build done. Because like I said, it should move under its own power. It just has, you know, just those last little odds and ends things that are just so finicky and so tedious to get taken care of. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little update video. I know it wasn't much, but it's just been tough to survive out here lately. But regardless, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. I'll see you next time.